Hello, welcome to Seek God Deeply, welcome to God Thoughts. We're in the studio today because I want to show you a diagram vision that I've been getting, and I've been getting confirmation through the Bible and through YouTube and through my searches. So what we see here is, let me explain this part right here. This is the mind, and if you see, here's my yin and yang. If I am to take this, here's my yin and yang. You can see this here. Now this, which is the ego, that's these two. I just put them in the center. They both touch. So this is obviously a reason why I'm showing you this is because I'm always seeing yin and yang within things. So this episode is called I and My Father Are One. And this diagram, I want you to bring into your God thoughts. And now when I say I want you to bring in your God thoughts, nothing I do, nothing I say is a lesson or something to be taught to you. I believe, I've gotten a few emails saying that, am I some type of prophet or something? If you come across anybody who says they're a prophet, if you come across anybody that says that they have the way, if you come across a church that says our church is correct, all others are wrong, if you come across a person that says he has all the answers for you, ignore everything else, run. My whole message is self-divinity within you. All answers are within you. I was brought up Christian, so I relate a lot to the Christian Bible. All of my visions I put into action through what I see in the Christian Bible. I've been reading the Quran, I've been reading the Shitas, Buddhism, I've been reading some Hindu, and I see similarity in everything. All of that stuff is in the mind of man. It has nothing to do with the Father, because remember, inside the Christian Bible it says things of man are foolishness to God, and the things of the Spirit are foolishness to man. So when I say take into your thoughts, I'm not telling you, I would never tell you, I have nothing to give you. No other person, no other organization, no religion has anything that they can give you and make your life better without you doing anything. It all comes down to you. All of this information, the religions, people's different ways, listen to it. If you fear any of it, you are blocking away a possible avenue that God, Allah, Elohim, whatever you want to call him, remember that, whatever you want to call him is coming from the mind of man. You're blocking the message that might be for you. I strongly believe that every experience that you experience, the moment you label it, this is a good experience, or this is a bad experience, you will never know the truth of that experience. Because if you start to label experiences, you miss the higher divinity of the possibility that this experience is something coming to you because your mind is attracting it. Whether in the mind of man it's good or bad, you need to see it as an experience that God, Elohim, Allah, whatever you want to call it, the consciousness of the universe, is bringing these experiences to you because something needs to be done. So when, let's say, a bad experience comes to you, the moment you say this is a bad experience, you'll never learn the lesson that this experience has for you. The moment you look at all experiences and say, okay, this is neither good, neither bad, it's an experience that, as Gregg Braden talks about the Unseen mirrors, this is something that I brought to myself. Something that is showing me what is going on within me. So now you have an external vision of something your internal spirituality is drawing to you. Whether in the mind of man you want to label it good or bad, you need to look at these experiences and say, this is sent to me, whether it is in the mind of man good or bad, it is sent to me so that I might learn something from it, so that I might understand something within it. Within all experiences, there is something for you. If there was nothing for you, you would not get that experience. If grace comes to you and you don't recognize it, it will stop. If evil comes to you and you constantly recognize it, it will continue to come to you. If you keep a flow of whatever it is, acknowledging it, it will come to you. This is why in the Bible it says, acknowledge God, acknowledge me in all thy ways. And experience is a way, is in all thy way. Your actions are experiences that you are now giving out in all thy ways. Let me just jump into this right now so you kind of understand where I'm coming from when I say the mind of man, the mind of Christ, and the I within. And as far as false prophet goes, I'm going to show you a little clip here from a girl named Teal Swan. When somebody sent me the email, I actually looked up false prophet just to see what was going on YouTube about false prophets, and Teal must have just recently uploaded this, and I don't know if she realizes how profound a couple of her sentences were. So check out her YouTube page. It's The Spiritual Catalyst. Her name is Teal Swan. She talks a lot about experiences and things that go on within the mind of man, and a lot of people need to try to accomplish things within the mind of man. So check out this. It's from Teal Swan. I'm just going to show you a very quick clip.
So what exactly is my stance on false prophets? There is no such thing as a false prophet. The united consciousness that people call God or source of the universe, you cannot be separate from it because you are it. Every being on earth is an extension of what you are calling God. Therefore, everyone is a prophet, whether they know it or not. God is not being selective about who it inspires or who it talks to. What language does this God consciousness speak in? A great many languages. But most often it speaks through the language of synchronicity and reflection. What you are hearing from all people who profess to have the ability to convey source consciousness to you directly or speak from God is a translation. And all translations are an interpretation. Interpretation is subject to perspective, and all perspectives are different. Perspective does not equal truth. No teacher that says that they represent the absolute truth is helping you, because in asking you to adopt their truth, they cause you to stray from your own truth. They wrap up truth for you in a tiny little box and hand it to you so you will never have to feel confused or uncertain enough to think for yourself. I can do no other than any other spiritual teacher or prophet does, which is to offer you my perspective. Try that perspective on and wear it around. If it doesn't fit well, take it off. If it fits well, keep it on. Or else take only parts of that perspective which I'm offering you, or which anyone is offering you. If parts suit you, keep them. If parts don't suit you, discard them.
Okay, that was Teal Swan. Now here, let me explain this right here. Right here I have the human being. Okay, the human being, which is made of pure light. God said, let there be light. Light is a substance that the force of God can now create all things. And we know from science, Gregg Braden, Bruce Lipton, that all this visible, touchable, tangible universe is a vibration of pure light. And without an observer, it's just pure waves, energy waves, which is what photons are. But all that we see that takes form is pure light. And inside of all light, there are specific words of God. A tree has a specific word that makes a tree, and the tree abides in its word. Just like you have a seed and soil. The seed does not know it's going to be a tree. Let's say it's an apple seed. It does not know it's going to bear fruit richly of apples. It does not know. A seed just has its information inside of it. And it will remain a seed until you plant it into its native soil. And once it goes into the soil, as it says in the Bible, I think Jesus said, once you abide in me, I will abide in you. So the soil was always there, the seed is over here. Once the seed and its specific word inside gets planted into the soil, if the message inside that seed, because I know some seeds will not grow in some type of soil. So obviously that seed does not abide with that soil. But let's say an apple seed goes into the ground and the apple seed is perfect. It abides perfectly with the spiritual grace and supply of the earth. Now the earth is going to abide in that seed and give that word within it life. Exactly what that word is supposed to do, the ground is now supplying. And when that tree grows up, when the fruits come upon it, you can tell right from those fruits, that little seed had all of this inside of it. And all of that bears inside of it has more seeds inside to reproduce itself. This is a law of God, a universal law. So let me explain this here. You have light, which took the form of a human being. Inside that human being at birth. Now look at a child, and I know all mothers out there will see this. At birth, before any mind of that child has anything in it, if that child were able to talk, would it not say, I am a baby? So we know at birth, there is an I within that child. An I that has no information, nothing from the mind of man to corrupt it. To me, a child is the most divine creature on earth in human being form. And it's the I, when the ego becomes aware of it, it's that I that is ever present that the ego hijacks. And now you have an ego that says, oh no, I am mad, I am sick. So at birth, you have an I within a child. And I and that father are one. We see this with Jesus saying, John 10:30, I and the Father are one. And then, as time goes on, the child starts to gain information in the mind of man. Memories are stored within the brain cells. And I just read, sorry to keep interrupting like this, but I just read that neuroscientists have found the memories within the cell. They are able to turn the polarity, or whatever it's called. If you have a memory that has a negative emotion on it, they can reverse the emotion so that when that memory comes up, it's no longer negative, it's positive. I forget the name of the article, but if you YouTube or Google neuroscientists find how to reverse emotion of brain cell, I think it was. But it was very interesting, and it just goes to show you that your emotions are not you, your brain cell memories are not you, those thoughts that come from them are not you, if they're able to be manipulated like that. Who is the one sitting back and looking at the experiences and looking at the thoughts and saying, that's a bad thought, I don't like that thought? Who is that I that is saying that? So here at birth, time goes on, the child starts to gain information into the brain, memories into the brain. Now you have the mind of man that is starting to develop. The parent corrects a child based on right and wrong. So a child starts to learn right and wrong from its parents in this world that Jesus was not a part of. So there was experiences that go into the mind of man. The child then becomes self-aware of himself, a persona. And we know where persona comes from. In the olden days, the actors used to put on masks, and they were called persona. I think it's Latin, actually. They would put on masks, they were called personas, and they would go out, and they would do the show, and they would do their acting, and then they would take the masks off. Well, we have masks on, and that mask is trying to keep us from realizing we can take it off. It's not truly who we are. So we have choices. What I think I need is all stuff that is built into the mind of man. You start to learn how to do actions, your judgings, your beliefs. All of this is in the mind of man along with the ego. So you have your mind of man. And this is the part of Jesus that said, I can of my own self do nothing. All that you see comes through the Father within me. This is the mind of man. Cast your nets to the right. The Father within will do all the works. The Father within has a will. John 6:38. Not to do my will, but the will of the Father, Jesus says. I can of my own self do nothing. I seek not my own will, but the will of the Father. I and the Father are one. And then we also know that Jesus said, my peace I give unto you, not as the world gives unto you. So I'm calling the mind of man the world. This is the world that Jesus overcame. This is the world that Jesus said, I am not a part of. And we know that Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world. My kingdom is within. You need to seek first the kingdom of God. And we know that Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. And then we see in 1 John 4:4, here's the mind of man, here's the I and the Father are one. We know that Jesus said, he that is in me, the I that is in you, is greater than he that is in the world. So this ego, when it claims to be the I of the form, when this ego claims to be the one that needs to take action, that needs to make all these decisions, that needs to run your life, you have to remember, this he in the world is not the greater. He within me is greater than he who is in the world. And remember, once you seek God, once you seek first the kingdom of God, and you start to die daily, as Paul says in Romans, Corinthians, one of those, it's not the ego that dies daily, and you do not have to go into the mind of man and try to jihad all of these things. You don't have to try to get rid of all your parental corrections, all your experiences, all your bad choices. You don't need to do any of that. Once you find the Father within, let the ego become a witness. Be still, be silent, and when God utters his word, the world, the earth melts. This is the world of man. Everything happens within. Once you find that I and the Father are one, and you start to consciously feel the truth in that, then you'll start to, God, Elohim, Allah, whatever you want to call it, will start to utter his words within you. And I cannot tell you how I communicate with God and how if I were, then I would be a false prophet. But the way that I experience God and the way he utters to me in his still small voice is going to be different from yours, because all of our egos, all of our worlds are different. Your parents corrected you totally different than my parents did. The information I started receiving at birth is totally different from the information you received. Any actions and judging that I do is going to be different from what you do. Any beliefs that I do are different from your beliefs. In this world, the ego needs to die daily of that by just simply seeking the truth of the I within. And as you live out and feel the truth in that, this world starts to melt away, because God is uttering his voice within the Christ mind, and your ego becomes a witness. Let me show you John 17:5. It says, this is Jesus talking now. Glorify me, Father, with you in that glory that I had with you from before the world was. Remember, in the Bible, the world is the mind of man. So this is why I say a baby child, and if you have any child below the age of one or younger, stare into his eyes and tell me that you don't feel that I, that something is behind that I, the letter I, not the physical I. And you'll know that there is glory within that child, because right now that child has no world. So all the glory that child is experiencing is with the Father. And then, of course, the world starts to happen to that child. And especially when the ego comes around, that ego helps build up the veil that hides the truth of the I. Remember, Jesus said, I have meat the world knows not of. I, not the world, not, Jesus wasn't saying, I, Jesus, have meat the world knows not of. When Jesus spoke, there were times when it was him, the man Jesus, speaking, when he said, I of myself can do nothing. All that you see me do, you can do and more. If I bear witness to myself, if he bared witness to himself and said all these things were his self, he would be telling you a lie. I have meat the world knows not of. And meat, we know, is word, is the information, is his utterance between him and God. Now, if you look up in the dictionary of what mysticism means, it is an avenue of communion with God. I may not be saying it the right way, but remember, it's the I that has meat the world knows not of. If the world ever tries to sell something to you, give something to you, exclaim that they are the way, the light, the only way, religion, it's coming from the ego of the mind of man. The people who are enlightened with the eye of Father, there isn't a single word they need to say to you. Ha'iman uta is Aramaic for faith, and it means consciously acting from the root of your being. And you will see the fruits of the root of every human being by their actions. And from those actions, you can tell this man is divine. This man is full of, you know what I'm saying? So, and another, DaleAllenHoffman.com. I'm trying to learn Aramaic, the language of Jesus. This here is Ina, Ina. And when Jesus said, Ina, Ina, Nuhra Deoma, which was translated as, I am the light of the world. Do you think a divine man as Jesus Christ would say, I, me, am the light of the world? Or would he be talking about, I am the light of the world? Because Jesus always said, cast your nets to the right. Let the I within. And remember, the I within you is mighty. Be still and know that I am God. With the laws of nature, with the laws of this universe, if you constantly say, I am fed up, I am mad, I am this and that, those affirmations, the I within you has to abide in them. So what do you think the experiences you're going to get when you proclaim that the I within you is mad and angry? You're going to get experiences, and they're going to show you exactly what mad and anger is. And until you overcome this world, until you stop looking at experiences as good and bad and realize the I within you is sending the I of the ego these little love notes saying, please, I'm knocking. I can't do any more than knock. You have to come to me and open the door. Just a little crack. And with that little crack, I can now utter my words, and your earth, your world will begin to melt. So, let's look at this again. Dale Allen Hoffman, Ina Ina. This is translated as I within the I. Now you gotta remember, in the Bible it also says, the I who is closer to you than breathing. This is the I who is closer to you than breathing. And in 1 Corinthians 2:14, it says, the natural man, this is the natural man, does not receive things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him, nor can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. So the ego, when it's on its I am the truth trip, it doesn't realize that it cannot know the things of the Spirit. Within this timeline of the mind of man, there's nothing in here that can put any definition on God, on their foolishness to God. And the things of the mind of man are foolishness to God. The things of the spirit are foolishness to mind of man, which is why we have all these wars and so many different religions, because everybody has their own concept, and that is all the mind of man will ever have about the truth is concepts. But when you seek the truth and you know the truth, then you take that knowing of the truth, because when you know the truth, then you know what you need to do. And that is to take all that knowing of the truth, get rid of it, so the truth can set you free. Knowing the truth does not set you free. It does not say, know the truth, and then you're free. It says, know the truth, and then the truth will set you free. So, the difference here is the way I'm going to know the truth, because of my facilities, because of what I've put into my facilities, my understanding of it, my concept of it is going to be different from yours. So I can only share with you, and you have to understand that the way that his understanding brought him to divinity or to the Father within is only gonna be shared with me to spark something within me, and then I will need to understand and know the truth in my way, and then the truth will set me free. If I try to do it his way, there's things that he understood because of his facilities that I might not understand. And this goes on constantly in the world of the mind of man. And most of this world is living out of the mind of man, which is why we have societies and problems and differences. The differences only exist here because every single human being, to me, has the I within, and it's that I within that is no different. Give me a definition of I, because I'll put another person right next to me, and his I, although it is the same as my I, he's gonna experience it and understand it differently. But the I within him is the same I within me. And the only reason why our explanations of it is different is because the human being needs to jump into its memory banks. In other words, if I have an Eskimo here and an African here, straight out of the jungles and straight out of the North Pole, and I said to them, okay, I'm going up to Alaska and I'm going to live inside of an igloo. The image that the Alaskan will have, the Eskimo will have of an igloo is going to be outstandingly different from the African who's never even seen snow. And maybe if I showed him a cartoon picture of an igloo, every time I say igloo, that is what he's going to see in his head, because that is the only thing that igloo triggers in his memory banks, in his life, that will give him that that comparison. Now, when you die daily, you don't get rid of these facilities. They melt away because these facilities are put into the mind of man, because the I within and this form that we are need them. Would Jesus be able to perform all those things if the facilities of the brain were the thing that died? No, of course not. So we also have 1 Corinthians 3:19, where it says, for wisdom of this world is foolishness to God. And that was obviously the same as the other one, where the natural man does not receive the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him. It goes both ways. So, this is one of my most recent. The ego has nothing to fear. And the transformation that you need to take is to allow the ego within you daily to build a conscious truth of this I within them and not separate. There's a veil here that's causing a separation, but the ego and I are one with the Father. The ego just needs to surrender this and become the most powerful thing the mind has ever seen, and that is to be a witness. the person is aware through the ego. So don't think just because I die daily, these things are gone, that there's no more you as a person. Your ego is needed within the mind of Christ, but it does not become a doer. It becomes a witness. There's nothing for it to do, because all of that comes from the Father within, and every action that comes from the Father within is a godly action through the mind of Christ. So this is my yin and yang of the mind. The ego is the one that's in both. We are aiming for the Christ mind, but we live in this world and we use these facilities to get through our daily life. Just keep reminding the ego and searching. Let the ego search for the I within that was with you before Abraham was, that was with you before this world was. Allow the ego to become comfortable with the idea that it is part of the most divine instrument, the temple of God, and the ego just needs to surrender back the facilities that it has hijacked from the Father within. And you will see, as the Father within starts to utter his voice through you, your world will melt. And what is left when this world melts? The world of God, the kingdom of God, the heaven that is within, as Jesus said. So I want to show you two videos of Gregg Braden, and one from Mooji, one from Gregg Braden, and then we're going to go for a little quick walk outside. So I hope this helps my little mind of man here. And and so are you. You are the light of God. Elohim be with you. I will see you in a few minutes outside.
In almost every eye of every individual that you'll ever look into, if you look long enough, you'll see and you'll feel that sense of a portion of yourself. You'll feel that recognition. You'll sense that familiarity.
The mind is trying to fix you to see objects. It will even create an object out of silence or space or the self or enlightenment. It will put something, and you're looking and using imagination. But the self is imageless. It is imageless. So therefore, when a blank comes, I say, don't panic. You are that which is observing the blank. Don't think that the blank is blocking something that's of value. The blank is just a kind of bluff. It's just a bluff from the mind itself. You understand what bluff is? It's just a trick. Ha 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 ha. Okay? But that's just an effect also. A blank is just an effect. Then the mind is going, okay, now you have to wait until I'm ready to show you. But then you see, but this is just an effect. I am the one seeing. It is so obvious. We are missing the obvious. You are the seer. The question, can the seer be seen? And then the mind is showing you objects. So look, the seer, no, it's not this. What about this? No, it's not that. What about blank? No, it's not that. Yeah? So something knows it's not going to be anything that can be discerned. It's not a feeling. It's not a beautiful image. It's not anything that you can see or have seen before. You have never seen the self. You have never seen the self, not phenomenally. You are the self. I gave the example, like a knife can cut so many things, but it cannot cut itself because it is one unit, one whole. Or the eyes can see so many things, but they can't see themselves. They can't do it because it is one thing. or a scale that can weigh so many objects, but it cannot weigh itself. You are the self. You cannot see yourself. You can only see from yourself. It was St. Francis, I think he says, no? What you are looking for is already where you're looking from. We are that. But out of training with the mind is always trained, it's the instrument for tasting variety and interpretation and so on. So we are trying to use the mind, which needs something to look at, something to compare, to find that which has no form, has no weight, has no texture. That which perceives even perceiving, sees even seeing, but itself cannot be seen, because it is beyond all forms, all names, all quality.
Well, almost universally, ancient texts and traditions have reminded us that we are connected. They've said that we are one, that we are part of our world, that we're part of one another, that we're part of the earth and the changes in the earth. And what I've found is, over the last 22 years, as I've traveled nearly every continent of the earth and spoken to people from so many different traditions and cultures, is that people really want to believe that. They want to believe, and they like to believe that we're truly connected, but they need a reason for that belief. In the last years of the 20th and now the first years of the early 21st century, science is now giving us that reason for our logical mind to make the connection, to see how we're related and how we influence the world, and how by honoring that connection through our hearts, we literally have the power to influence the very fields of this planet to sustain life in the world, sustain the health and the healing and the well-being of our bodies. And it's all about the magnetic fields of the earth. Where this really came into focus was around the events of September 11th, 2001. It was during that time that the United States has two satellites. They're called the GOES, G-O-E-S, Geosynchronous Environmental Satellites, I believe is what they're called. One positioned in the northern hemisphere, one positioned in the southern hemisphere. And the role of these satellites is to measure the magnetic fields of the earth and send back readings every 30 minutes. And those readings normally fall within a certain range of data that scientists are relatively used to seeing. Well, it was in September of 2001 that scientists began to see some readings that were off the map, just off the scale compared to what they'd seen in the past. And they said, well, what's happening? What is it that could be influencing the magnetic fields of the entire planet to such a degree that we're seeing these big spikes that our satellites are sending back? We've never seen these before. They overlaid the data from the satellites onto a calendar of months and days, and lo and behold, what they found is that the spike was occurring precisely during the time of September 11th, 2001, and even more precisely that the first spike occurred 15 minutes after the first plane hit the first tower in the World Trade Center. Now, the reason this is so important to a scientist is because for 300 years, our science has been based on two false assumptions. The first false assumption is that everything is separate from everything else, that what happens in one place has no effect on what happens anywhere else, and if it looks like it does, it's only a coincidence. The second false assumption is that our inner experiences of thought, feeling, emotion, and belief have no effect on the world beyond our bodies. Based on those two false assumptions that have been accepted for 300 years by scientists, I can see why there would be a disconnect when they're looking at magnetic fields of the earth spiking precisely the moment the human emotion of the planet is focused on a disaster. This led to a series of studies, and the bottom line to the studies is this. What they found is that it is human emotion, specifically the magnetic fields produced by the human heart during certain kinds of emotion, that now our document is extending far beyond our bodies into the physical world, and now to such a degree that our satellites hundreds of miles above the surface are able to pick these up. This has led to a number of studies now showing that when a certain number of people come together and they choose in a moment of time to create a precise emotion in their hearts, that emotion literally can intentionally influence the very fields that sustain the life on planet Earth. These fields are now implicated in everything from the immune response of humans throughout the planet, climate, weather patterns, cycles of war and peace, our ability to solve problems, our cognitive abilities. All of these, as different as they sound from one another, are all linked to our relationship to the magnetic fields of the Earth. So what makes this so beautiful is every human on the planet is linked to the field. But not every human on the planet has to be consciously aware of their relationship to benefit from what a relatively few number of people come to understand. And the bottom line is this, is that when we choose to feel feelings that create what is called coherence in our bodies. Coherence is the language, the quality of the language between our heart and our brain. Certain kinds of heart-based experiences, such as appreciation, gratitude, forgiveness, care, compassion, those are the ancient understandings that have always been taught in the truest traditions of our past, and now our own science is finding that those same traditions are now documenting this very real effect in our hearts. When we can feel those feelings in our bodies, they are mirrored in the field, and everyone benefits from the experience of relatively few.
Welcome back to God Thoughts. I and my Father are one. If you abide in me, I will abide in you. And I will be your security, your meat, your wine, your water. If you ever get a chance to just look at nature, look at the abundance, you ever wonder what this world, the nature, the physical world, would be like without the mind of man, without human beings? Would there be, within this nature, would there be problems? Would there be bad experiences? Would there be good experiences? And if you come to the conclusion that I have, that no, not a single one of these trees ever complains to its neighbor or to the ground in which it is abiding in, you will start to ask yourself, so then where do problems come from? Where does this belief in good and evil come from? And the answer that popped out to me was, it comes from within the mind of man. Biting into the apple of knowledge, biting into the tree of good and evil, was the moment our egos put belief in good and evil. And it is this putting in the belief of good and evil, you are abiding in the laws of good and evil. Therefore, you will experience good and evil. Does a tree believe in good or evil? No, it abides in that in which it is. And they live for hundreds and hundreds of years. And all they need is supplied unconditionally. The grace and the consciousness within a tree that supplies it with pure grace is the same grace that will supply you once you begin to abide in the I within, the Father within. Whatever you want to call it, don't get stuck on words. I'm here at the Delaware River. I'm just following a trail that's going to lead down to the river, so we'll head down there and talk a little bit about the river. So take into God Thoughts all that you can, not just from me, but from religions with an S at the end. Don't be fearful. Do not fear. Yeshua said this constantly. There is nothing to fear. If you believe in something that is bad, then of course that leads you to fear. when there is absolutely nothing to fear. The I within you is eternal. It can never die. It will never die. That is the eternal being of you. The mind of man will fade away, but the true you will never die. It was never born. It has been here before Abraham. Abraham resembling the mind of man. So seek ye first the kingdom of God. Once you find it, abide in it. Let's go down by the water. I'm gonna take my shoes off for this one. I'm here down by the Delaware River in northeast Pennsylvania. Seen a lot of frogs here jumping into the river. I and my Father are one. When you take a walk out in nature, when you can see that this water, though they call it a river, the same water connects way down there to the ocean. Now, we call this the river. Would I be wrong in saying that this water is also the water that is connected to the ocean? Would it be fair for me to say this water and the ocean are one? Would it be fair for me to say that the H2O that makes up this water that we call the river is the same H2O that makes up the ocean? So this water and the ocean are one. The Father within you, the I within you, if you abide in it, it will abide in you. And it will become your security, your meat, your wine, your water, your todays and yesterdays, all with the now. So, this river is one with the ocean. These beautiful trees abide in every aspect of the ground that it is planted in. Abide in me, and I will abide in you. This river is such a beautiful river. This river leads straight to the ocean. And at the same time, we could say the ocean leads straight to this river. The Father inside of us is forever trying to flow upstream, which is resembled in the Bible as God knocking at your door, will always be knocking at your door. He is in you, and He is closer than breathing. So with that, I know I'm using the microphone on the camera, but I and the Father are one. You and the Father are one. If you don't like to use the word Father, use universal consciousness. If you don't like to use that word, seek first the kingdom within you. If you don't like to use the word kingdom, find another word. Don't limit the beauty with words. Words are limited. Trying to explain something that is limitless. So remember that when someone else is trying to explain something to you. Understand the limitations of the mind of man. Get inspired. Abide in the I within you, and it will abide in you by starting to teach you. And we see in the Bible, once the Holy Spirit is in you, you no longer need external things to teach you. You start learning from within. The Father, God, begins to utter His word within, and the earth begins to melt. So with that, Elohim be with you. Elohim is you. Blessings. This is a reading from a spiritual mystic. He was born 1892, died in 1964. His name was Joel. Since I and the Father are one, I listen to the I that I am. The very I is the presence of God, and this leaves no image in thought because I have no picture of that I. I do not know what I looks like. There is no use going to a mirror, for that will not show me. That will show only my body. All I can see in the mirror is my body. But I, who am looking at the body, am invisible, so I cannot even see myself. I, then, only knows that I am that self. That self is I, for we are one and not two. I have no image of it, nor do I know its needs. At the moment, I may think of some needs, but they are not my needs. They are the needs of somebody I have built up in my own mind, somebody living a so-called human life. If I am wholly on the spiritual path, I must have passed the stage of praying for anything of a human nature, knowing full well that if I should get it, it might bring trouble with it, or prove unsatisfying after it arrived. Here's a prayer. I and my Father are one, but I do not know what the Father is. I do not know what the I is, but I do know that I am. And in that I am, is included through grace, all of which I shall need until eternity. I and my Father being one, I is that very God, not the God to whom I pray for things, but rather the God who knows what things I have need of. Furthermore, it is I's good pleasure to give me the kingdom. I in the midst of me is omniscience, and knows all things of what I have need. I in the midst of me is omnipotence, and has the power to provide whatever is necessary. I is the omnipresent love, and it is the good pleasure of this I in the midst of me to give me that which it already knows is my need. What words could follow that? How could you go any further than that in prayer? You can see why prayer cannot be fruitful as long as it is addressed to a thought about God, an image of God, or a concept of God. What possible difference could it make if your concept is Jewish, Vedantic, Buddhist, Islamic, or Christian, as long as all you have is a concept? How can a concept answer prayer? How can a thought in your mind answer prayer? The moment you prayed for anything or any condition, you would make a laughingstock of God. I in the midst of you, then, is the fulfillment of all your dreams, because you and the Father are one, and in that oneness is fulfillment. There is not I, the Father, and I, the Son. I, the Father, and I, the Son, are one, and therefore in the presence of the I that you are is your fulfillment. I in the midst of you is God, and you can rest and relax in the assurance that I in the midst of you will never leave you nor forsake you. If you ascend up into heaven, I will be there. And if you make your bed in hell, I will be there. If you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, yes, I will be there. Blessings.